Tamlane by Jade Maître. Fair Janet was subject to dreaming as she sat in the stony window nook, nestled in a ray of mid-morning luminance, lithe fingers seaming the fine linen shifts she embroidered with hemlock and clover, dipped in rosewater, pressed with iron. To the cloud-gazing Janet, it seemed the coy, gently rolling shoulders of the hills called an invitation to brisk spring, woolly lamb call, cornflowers, stiff sunny breezes, and mown grass perfumes mingled with cold sun. And yet, this particular morning, Janet heard something more certain than the nearing blossoming of warmth, more aching than a winter yearning for summer. A call, a horn, but a horn blown so sweetly it seemed like a voice breathed into her ear, a child hurtling pell-mell down a hill, a delicious secret from a best friend, a lull on the slow opening of eyes at dawn. The horn called to her as though it were spoken. "Janet, fair Janet, come hither." And hither she was forced to come. She dropped her sewing and skittered down the hills into the shaded forest, searching the source of the sound she could not ignore. How chill the forest was. Winter lurked yet in the bare gnarled boughs, mossy overgrowth and a vastness of shade. Janet slowed and strained to hear once more the horn. Once again, with assured certainty, its music glided into the forest air, now nearer, now alive. And then, from between two oaks emerged a knight, clothed over in green, his velvet cuffs pressed against his pale, sunless wrists, recalling a fashion not seen in so many centuries. Grey eyes laughing, he lifted the panpipes to his flautist lip, its smiling bow, his fair neck-length hair falling into his eyes, and once more blew it in greeting. The tune struck her like a branch. A wave of it quavered from ears and eyes to toes. It was a holy sound, a holy soul who made it. Is that a fairy horn that blows so sweet a note? Aye, I learned to play it in fairyland. You can only breathe lullabies into it, and storms and bird call. In many a forest have I blown this horn, north and south, east and west, and you are the only to answer it. The skin on Janet's arms and belly grew warm. She tensed, for fairies are frightening to God-fearing folk. What charms they cast cannot be known. What spell might this stranger weave in the lift and fall of horn call? He seemed beautiful, but fairies are made to seem beautiful, and sometimes such beauty conceals a frog body beneath it, a sour golem or a selkie snapping to drowning on the instant of grace. Sensing her fear, the knight's smile fell. He put his horn in his pocket, and his eyes grew troubled. From fairyland I brought it, yet I am of human flesh and blood like you. I am Tamlane, stolen by elves as a babe, raised by them, kept by them as humans keep bright singing birds. In fairyland the air is pregnant with sleep potions. You are ever drowsy and stupefied. Food tastes strange, senses are dulled. I have forgotten the lemon of taste, the sharp knife of desire. The queen of the fairies favours me and coddles me, but I long for my kind, and to live again. Janet knew she was no longer afeard of Tamlane being a fairy, but more of her own words, which flew from her lips unbidden, with such joy at the prospect that he might stay in her world, that her blood ran wild and her reason left her. "Why not go now?" she urged. "Walk up that hill I just came down, find my father and stay with us." "The fairies will not let me," said Tamlane. "Only a true brave lady can set me free. You heard my horn, and so you are her." His eyes were soft as he said it. She knew that the fairy horn had struck him too, for being heard by two souls rather than one had blown lightly on an ember, raised it to a flame, and now it licked between the two of them. Both were now bound more irretractably than even in fairyland. "What do you bid me do?" Janet asked. "I will do it, if it frees you from the fairy queen and permits you to return to the land of freedom and lemon and aliveness." "First take this ring," said Tamlane, bending, "and we will be betrothed." And when she had taken the ring and kissed him, he said, "Every Halloween at midnight the fairies ride abroad. Go to Milecross, hide behind a tree, and await them. First will ride the fairy queen herself. Silver laces her forehead. Her dress is weighted with topaz and peridot, and made of spider-web filigree. Fireflies hold her robes aloft. The humming of their wings will mingle with the bells draped on her violet steed, and cause a music so enchanting that whole villages have gone mad for finding the source of such a sweet melody. She will look straight ahead, and the moon will gleam upon her. Stay concealed. Do not emerge when the Fairy Queen passes. Next will come all the ladies and squires of the Fairy Queen. They number in their hundreds. They are each a mote of dust, wafted by autumn gusts, transformed to capricious little creatures to serve her highness, make music and amuse her. They will seem clothed in the most exquisite of gowns and tunics, but they are not real. They are dead leaves and bones, twigs and stones. They may seem human or fairy, but remember they are neither. Hide yourself. Do not emerge when the ladies and squires pass. Following this will come her knights, and here it is I will ride. We will have our faces covered, but you'll know me by my pale steed gleaming like the moon. Lest there be any doubt, I will also wear a glove on one hand and not the other, and let the bare hand hang beside me. When you see me, beloved, spring from behind that safe rock and hold me. That is all you must do. Hold me tight and do not let go, not for screaming or fury, deception or beauty. Hold me steadfast and do not let go. I may warn you, the party will raise a cry like a crashing wave. The Queen will turn her emerald fury upon you. She will change me into many forms, but always you must know me. Hold me fast, hold me sure. Once I take my own shape again, I will be free forevermore. I will do it, said Janet, although she trembled at the thought of the full tower of wrath that would fall upon her, and worried at the forms Tamlane might transform into. But she was brave, and could not do other than his asking. They kissed, he left, with the lingering scent of time and trust. Spring came, and slow summer, and the months passed for Janet in dull, aching longing, but more than this, fear. This sense that crawled into her skin and lived in her body as a foreign thing, for the uncertainty of what was to come. What the Fairy Queen's wrath might resemble, and what forms her dear Tamlane would take. But as the days shortened and darkened, the feeling hardened, and a solid knowing settled itself on her soul. She readied herself for come what may, in every stab of her needle into the skin of the cloak she sewed, to clothe her in obscurity as she would conceal herself amongst the trees, and wait to steal the willing Tamlane at midnight stroke. And so she found herself there, crouched behind a tree when midnight came, eyes straining to watch for her dear Tamlane. First came the Fairy Queen, with a circlet of stars on her brow, her dress lit with fireflies and ephemerals, her eyes glittering and fixed on the dark path that curved between oaks and hawthorn. The light sound of bells and the deep sound of hooves on furs. Next, the ladies and squires, talking and laughing, skimming the fallen leaf litter of the forest floor, twitching and smirking, giggling in peals, their slippers scuttling insects and martins as a wind picks up samaras and scatters them east and west. Now came the knights in green. Each had a curved silver horn slung from their saddle, gleaming ashen in the moon's lustre. Half were on black horses, half were on brown, but soon amongst them came the pale steed ridden with one gloved hand, the other bare at his side. His eyes were fixed forward and clothed in shadow. His gaze did not stray from the path. Seeing it was her beloved, Janet sprang into the procession, pulled him from his white horse by the mantle, wrapped her arms around his beloved form, and held her wrists tight in a lock. From the fairy train arose a cry, "Tamlane's away! Tamlane's away!" Janet saw the Fairy Queen not, but suddenly there was a flooding of flame-coloured rage which lit the clearing. Janet's arms now encircled a great grey struggling wolf. Enormous and heavy, his fur bore the odours of dead things. He snapped and panted against her, teeth gleaming, hot and angry. Janet nearly released him for fear, but then remembered Tamlane's words and held him fast. And now the wolf's grey bleached, his pelt curled up and crisped, his hind and forelegs straightened, and he was no longer a wolf, but a stiff burning thing, a bale of burning straw. Hungry for fuel, it raged against her, crackling, demanding release from her stubborn arms, flaring up in the most scorching of firestorms. The sound of the flames roared at her ears, but Janet did not release the burning bale of hay, and was not burnt. Soon the flame dulled and flickered, its contortions transformed into the whipping head and tail of a serpent. Burnt orange, it sliced its scaly body through the night air as though dancing to the cacophony of shrieks that the fairy parade now made as they cringed before the magic. Heavy as Tamlane himself, the snake wound its skin around Janet's arms and neck and tightened. But she held her breath. and did not release him. Suddenly, the scales softened and became feathers, blinding white as milk and comets, and the fangs a plunging beak that snapped at Janet's face and beat its muscled wings about her head, honking dreadfully, insisting on its swift freedom by pointed force. But Janet once more shut her eyes and held the wild and furious swan. She bore the battering, and still did not release him. Her eyes still closed, she did not see the final transformation, but only felt a kind of heavy surrender as the swan sagged in her arms and stopped all battle. Carefully, Janet opened her eyes to see the swan gone. Tamlane, her true love, was instead clasped within her trembling embrace, limp, heart beating wildly. He was weary. The fairy queen rode through the party, who parted before her impetuous lip, her haughty wrath. The stars on her forehead burned like demons, and 2 small crimson spots flushed her cheeks. She turned the great rump of the horse she rode, and shouted over her shoulder, "Tamlane! Tamlane! If I had known yesterday what I know today, I would have taken out your 2 blue eyes and given you eyes of stone. Never should you have ridden abroad with me this night." In a gust, the fairy queen and her party vanished, leaving only the linger of burnt smells, burnt sugar, charred cherry, black pine. A lilt of bells shimmered through the empty air as the procession continued in another sphere. Only the empty moan of a nocturnal wind rustled lightly in its wake. Within the fence of Janet's arms, Tamlane, green-clothed and grateful, took her face in his hands and kissed her as though it were finished. But Janet smelled the fur and scales in him. Her arms bore no wounds, but memory did. The fairy queen's curse, these things would stay, the snake and the swan, the wolf and the hay. Though brave, for Janet, they'd never be gone. The wolf and the hay, the snake and the swan. The end.
Story Berry.